Sometimes the right person comes at the wrong time. And sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you can do until you're ready to stay. She had been working at the advertising agency for almost 3 years when he walked through the glass doors that Monday morning. Nothing about that day suggested it would change everything. The coffee machine was broken again, her desk was cluttered with half-finished projects, and the morning meeting was running 15 minutes late as usual. When their manager introduced him as the new senior designer transferring from their branch up north, she barely looked up from her phone. Another colleague, another handshake, another name to remember. The company was always shuffling people around, and she had learned not to get too attached to team members who might be gone in 6 months. But then something unexpected happened during the meeting. While everyone else was pitching ideas for the new campaign, talking over each other in that chaotic way creative teams do, he stayed quiet. He just listened. Really listened. And when he finally spoke, his idea was so simple and brilliant that the entire room went silent. She found herself watching him, noticing the way he tapped his pen against his notebook when he was thinking. The slight smile that appeared when someone said something funny. The fact that he made eye contact with everyone when they spoke, like their words actually mattered to him. Over the next 2 weeks, they were assigned to the same project. A major client wanted a complete brand refresh, and the deadline was brutal. The team was working late almost every night, surviving on takeout food and endless cups of coffee from the shop downstairs. That's when she really started noticing him. Not in the way you notice someone is tall or has nice eyes, but in a deeper way. She noticed that he always thanked the cleaning staff by name, that he remembered she didn't like mushrooms on her pizza after she mentioned it once, that he had a habit of running his hand through his hair when he was frustrated with the design. They fell into an easy rhythm. She would write the copy, he would create the visuals, and somehow their styles just fit together. What one person started, the other could finish. It was the kind of professional chemistry that makes work feel less like work and more like collaboration with a friend. The coffee run started in week 3. At first it was practical. They both needed caffeine to survive the late nights. But then it became their thing. Around 4 in the afternoon, he would stop by her desk and ask if she wanted anything. She always said yes, even on days when she didn't really need more coffee. Those 10 minutes walking to the shop and back became the highlight of her day. They talked about everything during those walks. Favorite movies, worst jobs they'd ever had, places they wanted to travel someday. He told her about growing up in a small town where everyone knew everyone. She told him about her family's tradition of Sunday dinners that she missed since moving to the city. But there were things he didn't talk about. She noticed he never mentioned his personal life. No stories about weekend plans or funny things his partner said. When other colleagues talked about their families, he would smile politely and change the subject. One evening, about a month after he started, they were the last ones left in the office. It was past midnight, and they were trying to finish a presentation for the next morning. Her eyes were burning from staring at the screen, and she could see he was exhausted too. "I'm going to make another pot of coffee," she said, standing up to stretch. "Want some?" "I think if I have more coffee, my heart might actually stop," he replied, but he was smiling. "Let's take a break. Walk around the block or something. Get some air." They ended up sitting on a bench outside the building, watching the occasional taxi pass by on the empty street. The city felt different at night, quieter, more honest somehow. That's when he told her. Not everything, but enough. He mentioned that he was separated, that he'd moved to the city partly for the job, partly to get some distance and figure things out. That his life felt like it was in pieces right now, and he was trying to put them back together in a way that made sense. She didn't know what to say. She had assumed he was single, maybe had a girlfriend somewhere. Finding out he was married or had been married changed something. Created a line she hadn't known was there. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I don't usually talk about this at work. I don't know why I just told you all that." "It's okay," she said, and she meant it. "We're friends, right? Friends talk about real stuff." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she felt something shift in her chest. Awareness that crept up on her slowly, then all at once. This wasn't just friendly coffee runs and late-night work sessions. Somewhere along the way, without meaning to, she had started caring about him in a way that went beyond co-workers. And from the way he was looking at her right now, she wondered if maybe he felt it too. They went back upstairs and finished the presentation. But the easy atmosphere from before was gone, replaced by something else, something unspoken that made the air feel heavier. Every time their hands accidentally brushed, reaching for the same document, she felt it. Every time she caught him looking at her and he quickly looked away, she felt it. The presentation the next day went perfectly. The client loved everything. Their manager praised their work, said they made a great team. Everyone was celebrating, talking about going out for drinks after work. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. She found herself aware of where he was in every room. When he laughed at someone else's joke, she felt a strange twist in her stomach. When he left early, saying he had things to take care of, she felt disappointed in a way that seemed too big for just missing a colleague. That weekend, she couldn't stop thinking about their conversation on the bench, about the sadness in his voice when he talked about his separation, about how natural it felt to sit next to him in the quiet night. Her best friend called on Sunday and immediately knew something was wrong. After 20 minutes of dodging questions, she finally admitted it. She might have developed feelings for someone at work, someone who was technically still married, someone who was clearly dealing with his own complicated situation. "So what are you going to do?" her friend asked. "Nothing," she said firmly. "Absolutely nothing. It's just a silly crush. It'll pass." But Monday morning, when she walked into the office and saw him already at his desk, when he looked up and smiled and held up a coffee cup he'd already bought for her, she knew it wouldn't be that simple. Some things, once you acknowledge them, can't be pushed back down. Some connections once made can't be unmade. And as the weeks continued, as they worked on more projects together, as the coffee runs continued and the late nights multiplied, that connection only grew stronger. She didn't know where it would lead. She didn't even know if it would lead anywhere. All she knew was that something had started, something neither of them had planned for. And whether they wanted to or not, they were both caught in it now. The company retreat came 6 weeks later. Everyone had been talking about it for days. 3 days at a mountain resort, supposedly for team building and strategy planning, but really it was just an excuse to get out of the office. She had mixed feelings about going. 3 days of forced fun with coworkers sounded exhausting, but then she found out he was going too, and suddenly she was looking forward to it. The resort was beautiful. Tall pine trees everywhere, mountains in the distance, air so clean and fresh it almost hurt to breathe after months of city pollution. They arrived on a Thursday afternoon, and the first day was filled with the usual corporate retreat activities. Trust falls problem-solving exercises, a team dinner where everyone pretended to be more excited than they actually were. She noticed him across the room during dinner. He was sitting with some of the other designers, laughing at something someone said, but every now and then his eyes would find hers, just for a second, just long enough to make her heart beat a little faster. After dinner, most people went to their rooms. Some went to the bar. She decided to get some air, grabbing her jacket and heading out to the lodge's deck. The night was cold but clear, stars scattered across the sky like someone had spilled diamonds. Back in the city, you could never see stars like this. She was standing at the railing, looking out at the dark shapes of mountains against the sky, when she heard footsteps behind her. "Couldn't sleep either," he asked, coming to stand beside her. "Too quiet," she said. "I'm so used to city noise. All this silence is actually kind of loud, you know?" He laughed. "I know exactly what you mean." They stood there in comfortable silence for a while, just looking at the stars. But there was something different about being here, away from the office, away from fluorescent lights and desk chairs and the constant hum of computers. Out here in the dark and quiet, things felt more real somehow, more honest. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. "And you can tell me if it's too personal. Go ahead. Your separation. How are you doing with all of that?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Some days are better than others," he said. "We got married young. Too young, probably. And then we just grew into different people. She wanted one kind of life, I wanted another. We tried to make it work for a long time, but trying isn't always enough." "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be. It's not sad, really. It's just life. Things don't always work out the way you plan." He turned to look at her. "What about you? Anyone special in your life?" "No," she said. "There was someone about a year ago, but it fizzled out. He wanted different things. Seems to be a common theme." "His loss," he said quietly. The words hung in the air between them. She could feel her pulse in her throat. They were standing close now, close enough that she could feel warmth radiating from him in the cold night air. "Can I tell you something?" he said. "And this might be completely inappropriate, but I feel like I should say it anyway." "Okay. These past few weeks working with you, getting to know you. It's been the best part of my day. Every day. You make me laugh. You make me think. You make coming to work feel less like work and more like something I actually look forward to." She felt like her heart might burst out of her chest. "I feel the same way," she admitted. "I've been trying not to, but I do." He moved closer. She could see the conflict in his eyes, want fighting against something else, logic maybe, or fear, or responsibility. "You keep looking at me like that," she whispered, and she could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. "Do you really want me to stop?" She leaned in slightly, just a little, giving him the choice, giving him the chance to close the distance between them or step away. For a moment, she thought he would kiss her. He looked like he wanted to. His eyes dropped to her mouth, and she saw him lean forward just a fraction. But then he stopped. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, and when he opened them again, something had changed. "I can't," he said, and his voice sounded rough. "I want to, but I can't." He stepped back, putting space between them. The cold air rushed in where his warmth had been. "I'm still married," he continued. "Separated, yes. Getting divorced, yes. But right now, legally, emotionally, it's all still so complicated. And you deserve better than complicated. You deserve someone who can give you everything, not someone who's still untangling himself from someone else." She felt the rejection like a physical thing, sharp in her chest. But even through the hurt, she understood. She even respected him for it, though that didn't make it sting any less. "I should go," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's late." "Wait," he said. "Please don't be upset. This isn't about not wanting—" "I know," she interrupted. "I get it. Really, I do. It's fine, but it wasn't fine." She could feel tears threatening, and she absolutely refused to cry in front of him. She turned and walked back toward the lodge, moving quickly, not looking back. In her room, she sat on the edge of the bed and let herself feel all of it. The embarrassment of putting herself out there. The hurt of being turned away. The confusion of understanding why he said no, but wishing he had said yes anyway. She barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that moment on the deck. The way he had looked at her. The way he had almost kissed her. The way he had walked away. The next morning at breakfast was painful. They were professionals, so they were polite. They said good morning. They sat with the group. But there was a careful distance between them now, a space that hadn't been there before. During the morning's activities, they ended up on different teams. She was actually grateful for it. Every time she accidentally caught his eye, she felt that same twist in her stomach. That same confusing mix of wanting and wishing she didn't want. By lunchtime, she had made a decision. This couldn't continue. Working together every day feeling like this, it was too hard. When they got back to the office, she would request a transfer to a different project. She would tell her manager she wanted to expand her skills, work with different teams. No one had to know the real reason. The rest of the retreat dragged by. She smiled when she was supposed to smile. She participated in activities. She pretended everything was normal. But inside she felt like something had broken. Not just between them, but something in her. The hope she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying. On the last evening, she saw him standing alone near the lobby, checking his phone. For a second, she considered going over. Maybe they could talk about it. Clear the air. Figure out how to go back to being just colleagues. But before she could decide, he looked up and saw her. Their eyes met across the room. And in that moment, she saw everything she felt reflected back at her. The wanting, the regret, the impossibility of it all. He gave her a small, sad smile. She returned it. And then she turned and walked away, knowing that everything had changed and there was no way to change it back. Monday morning back at the office felt like walking into a different world. The retreat seemed like it had happened months ago instead of just days. She got to work early, made herself busy with emails, and tried not to think about the mountain air and starlight and that moment on the deck. But avoiding thoughts was easier than avoiding him. They worked in the same office, on the same floor, sometimes on the same projects. Seeing him was inevitable. The first time they ran into each other was at the coffee machine. Classic. She was waiting for her cup to fill when she heard his footsteps behind her. Her whole body tensed. "Morning," he said quietly, Morning, she replied, not turning around. The silence stretched out, uncomfortable and heavy. Finally, her cup was full and she grabbed it and walked away without saying anything else. She felt his eyes on her back the whole way to her desk. By Tuesday afternoon, she had made up her mind completely. She couldn't keep doing this. The tension, the awkwardness, the way her stomach dropped every time she saw him. It was affecting her work, her focus, everything. She scheduled a meeting with her manager for Wednesday morning. "I've been thinking," she said, trying to sound casual and professional. "I'd really like to expand my experience, work with some of the other teams, learn different aspects of the business. I feel like I've been doing similar projects for a while now and I'm ready for a change." Her manager seemed pleased. "That's great initiative. I love seeing that kind of growth mindset. Let me see what we can arrange." By Friday, it was official. She was being transferred to a different project team starting the following week. New clients, new colleagues, new everything. It was what she wanted. It was what she needed. But that didn't stop her from feeling like she was running away. She didn't tell him directly about the transfer. She figured he'd find out through the usual office channels. But on her last Friday with the old team, he sent her an email. She saw his name in her inbox and her heart did that stupid jumping thing it always did. The email was short and professional. He congratulated her on the new opportunity, said she'd been a great colleague to work with, wished her well. But there was something in the words between the lines that felt like more, like regret maybe, like goodbye to something that never got to be. She didn't reply. What would she even say? The new team was nice enough. The work was interesting. She threw herself into it completely, accepting every project, volunteering for extra assignments, staying late most nights. If she kept busy enough, she didn't have time to think. And if she didn't think, she didn't remember. Except she did remember, all the time. She remembered the way he laughed at her jokes. The way he always bought her coffee without asking what she wanted because he already knew. The way he had looked at her on that deck, like she was something precious and impossible at the same time. Her best friend noticed the change in her. They met for dinner on a Thursday night, and within 10 minutes she could tell something was being asked without words. "Okay, what's going on with you?" her friend finally said. "You've been weird for weeks now, distant, are you okay?" And then it all came spilling out. The whole story. The late nights at work, the coffee runs, the retreat, the almost kiss, the rejection, the transfer. Everything she'd been holding inside for weeks. "So you ran away," her friend said when she finished. "I didn't run away. I requested a professional development opportunity." "You ran away," she sighed. "Okay, fine. I ran away. But what was I supposed to do? Keep working with him every day, feeling like this? That's not fair to either of us. Have you considered that maybe he's feeling the same way? That maybe he made the right choice for the wrong reasons? He's still married. Or was married. Whatever. The point is, his life is complicated, and I don't need that kind of complicated." "Everyone's life is complicated," her friend said gently. "That's just life. The question is whether you think he's worth the complicated." She didn't have an answer for that. Meanwhile, across the city, he was dealing with his own complicated. The divorce papers were moving forward slowly. There were lawyers and mediators and endless discussions about who got what. His daughter was the hardest part. She was only 6, and trying to explain why Daddy didn't live at home anymore broke his heart every single time. Some nights, sitting alone in his new apartment, he'd think about her. The woman from work who had somehow become so important so quickly. He'd wonder if he'd made the right choice on that mountain deck. Part of him knew he had. You can't start something new while you're still ending something old. It's not fair to anyone. But another part of him wondered, what if? What if he had been braver? What if he had said yes instead of no? What if he had been willing to handle complicated? He'd drafted a dozen messages to her on his phone. Deleted every single one. What would he even say? "Sorry I rejected you, but my life's a mess right now." That wasn't fair to her either. He saw her sometimes in the office, even though they were on different teams now. She'd be in the hallway or the break room or leaving the building. Every time his heart would speed up and he'd think about walking over. Saying something, anything, but he never did. Because what could he say that would make any of this better? 2 months passed like this. 2 months of her staying busy, and him working through his divorce, and both of them carefully avoiding each other in the ways that people do when they're trying not to feel something. She went on a date. Just one. A friend of a friend who worked in finance and seemed nice enough. They had dinner, made polite conversation. And at the end of the night, when he asked if she wanted to get coffee sometime, she said yes, even though she didn't really mean it. The coffee date never happened. She canceled the morning of, claiming a work emergency. It wasn't technically a lie. There was work, but it wasn't really an emergency. The truth was she couldn't stop comparing this nice finance guy to someone else. Someone who knew how she took her coffee and made her laugh without trying and looked at her like she mattered. It wasn't fair to the finance guy. It wasn't fair to her either. Her friend told her she needed to move on. Stop thinking about what might have been and focus on what could be. But moving on felt impossible when everything reminded her of him. The coffee shop they used to go to. The time on the clock when they used to take their afternoon break. The way certain songs on the radio made her think of conversations they'd had. She wondered if it would always be like this. If months from now, years from now, she'd still think about that night under the stars. About the moment that almost was but never quite became. She wondered if he ever thought about her too. The answer was yes. He thought about her all the time. But he was still sorting through the pieces of his old life, still trying to figure out how to be a good father to his daughter while living in a different house, still navigating the weird territory of being almost divorced but not quite. And he kept telling himself that when things were clearer, when his life was more settled, when he could offer her something real instead of just complicated, maybe then he could reach out. Maybe then he could say all the things he should have said on that mountain deck. But time kept passing and settled never quite seemed to arrive. 6 months had passed since that night on the mountain deck. 6 months of carefully constructed distance and professional politeness on the rare occasions they crossed paths in the office. 6 months of both of them trying to convince themselves they were fine. Then everything changed in one Monday morning meeting. The company was restructuring. Again. Budget cuts meant they were merging teams, consolidating projects, making everything more efficient. Corporate speak for, we're shuffling everyone around and hoping it works out. She sat in the conference room half listening to her manager explain the new team arrangements when she heard it. Her project group was being folded back into the main department. The same department where he worked. The same team, actually. Her stomach dropped. She looked across the room and found him already looking at her. Their eyes met for just a second before they both looked away. But that 1 second was enough to know they were both thinking the same thing. This was going to be complicated. The first project meeting with the newly merged team was scheduled for Wednesday. She considered calling in sick. Actually typed out the text message to her manager, but then deleted it. She was a professional. She could handle working with him again. It had been 6 months. Surely enough time had passed. Wednesday came too quickly. She walked into the conference room and he was already there sitting at the far end of the table. He looked different somehow. Tired maybe, or older, or just different in the way people look when time has passed and things have changed. Morning, she said to the room in general, not to him specifically. Morning, several voices replied back, including his. The meeting started. They were pitching for a big client. Something about a new product launch that needed a complete marketing strategy. It was the kind of project that required everyone's input. The kind where they'd all have to work together closely. She tried to focus on what the senior manager was saying, but she was hyper-aware of him sitting down the table, the way he was taking notes, the way he nodded when someone made a good point. All those little things she'd trained herself to forget came flooding back. Then something unexpected happened. The manager asked for ideas on the campaign direction. The room went quiet, everyone thinking. She had an idea, but she hesitated. It felt risky to speak up, to put herself out there. Before she could decide, he spoke. What if we approached it from the user's perspective? Instead of telling them what the product does, we show them how it fits into their actual daily life. It was a good idea. A really good idea. The kind of thinking that made campaigns memorable instead of forgettable. I like that, she found herself saying. We could structure it around real moments. Morning coffee, commute to work, evening wind down. Make it relatable. He looked at her then, really looked at her for the first time in months. Exactly, he said. We could even use real stories from actual users. Build it around authentic experiences instead of manufactured marketing speak, she continued, feeling the old rhythm returning. That easy back and forth they used to have? Yes, he said. And there was something in his voice, recognition maybe, or relief. The rest of the team jumped in with their own ideas, building on the foundation they'd started. By the end of the meeting, they had the bones of a solid campaign. The manager assigned roles, and somehow, inevitably, she and he ended up as the creative leads. Partners again. After the meeting, everyone filed out. She gathered her things slowly, hoping to avoid walking out with him. But he waited by the door, clearly wanting to talk. "Hey," he said when it was just the two of them left. "That was good. What you said in there. Your ideas, thanks. Yours too." Silence stretched between them, awkward and heavy with everything unsaid. "Look," he started, then stopped, ran his hand through his hair the way he always did when he was nervous. "I know this is weird, us working together again, but I want you to know, I'm going to be professional about it. We can make this work. I know we can," she said. "We're both adults." "Right, adults." More silence. "My divorce was finalized," he said suddenly. "Last month. It's done. Everything's official now." She didn't know what to say to that. Congratulations seemed wrong. Sorry seemed wrong too. "How are you doing with everything?" she finally asked. "Better," he said. "It's been an adjustment. Figuring out custody, finding a routine with my daughter, but it's better. Clearer, you know? That's good. I'm glad things are working out." He looked like he wanted to say more. His mouth opened, then closed again. Finally, he just nodded. "I should get going. Client call in 10 minutes. Yeah, me too. Work to do." They walked out together but split up in the hallway, heading to their separate desks. And that was that. Colleagues again. Professional. Appropriate. Except it didn't feel appropriate. It felt like unfinished business. Over the next 2 weeks, they fell back into working together. It was strange at first, tiptoeing around each other, being overly polite, but gradually, inevitably, they found their rhythm again. The rhythm that had always been there underneath everything else. She'd start a sentence, he'd finish it. He'd sketch out a visual concept. She'd know exactly what copy would work with it. They challenged each other's ideas in ways that made the work better. They made each other laugh during long afternoon meetings when everyone else was tired and cranky. The campaign was coming together beautifully. Everyone said so. The senior manager called it some of their best work. Said they made a great team, and they did. That was the problem, actually. They worked together too well. Fit together too naturally. One evening, they were the last ones in the office again. Just like old times, they were reviewing the final presentation for the client pitch scheduled for the next day. "This slide needs something," she said, frowning at her laptop screen. "It's good, but it's not quite there yet." He got up and came around to her side of the desk to look. Stood close enough that she could smell his cologne. The same one he'd always worn. "What if we move this section here," he said, pointing at the screen, and brought the testimonial up front. "Yes," she said. "That's perfect." He didn't move away. She didn't ask him to. They both just stood there looking at the screen, not really seeing it anymore. "I've missed this," he said quietly. "Working with you. Just being around you." Her heart was hammering in her chest. "I've missed it too." He turned to look at her. They were so close. Close enough that she could see the exact color of his eyes in the desk lamplight. Close enough that if either of them moved just a little, everything would change. "I made a mistake," he said. "That night at the retreat. I thought I was doing the right thing, being responsible. But I think I was just scared. Scared of what? Of how much I felt. How much I wanted something I didn't think I deserved to want. How complicated everything was. And now?" she asked, barely breathing. "Now everything's still complicated. I have a daughter, an ex-wife. Baggage most people wouldn't want to deal with. But I'm not scared anymore. Or maybe I am, but I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions." She could feel tears starting in her eyes, but they were good tears. Relief tears. Finally tears. "I don't need perfect," she said. "I never did. I just needed honest. I can do honest," he said. And this time when he leaned in, he didn't stop. This time when their lips met, it felt like something clicking into place. Something that had been waiting 6 months to happen. The kiss was gentle and careful and full of everything they hadn't said. When they pulled apart, they were both smiling. "So," he said, "what happens now?" "Now we take it slow," she said. "Figure it out as we go. No pressure. No expectations. Just see where this goes. I can do that too." They finished the presentation together. Ordered dinner from the Thai place down the street. Talked about real things. His daughter and what it was like being a weekend dad. Her family and why she hadn't gone home for the holidays. The little pieces of their lives they hadn't shared before. When they finally left the office, he walked her to her car. At her door, he kissed her again, soft and sweet and promising. "Good luck tomorrow," she said, with the presentation. "We'll do great," he said. "We always do," and he was right. The next day, their presentation was perfect. The client loved everything. Signed the contract on the spot. It was a professional triumph. But when she looked across the conference table at him, celebrating with the team, what mattered most wasn't the client or the campaign. It was the way he smiled at her, like they had a secret no one else knew, like they were writing their own story now, one that hadn't been possible 6 months ago but somehow was possible now. 8 months had passed since that second kiss in the office. 8 months of slowly building something real, something that felt different from anything either of them had experienced before. It was a Saturday evening, and she was in her apartment kitchen chopping vegetables for dinner. He was at the stove, stirring pasta sauce, humming along to the music playing from her phone. His daughter was with his ex-wife this weekend, which meant they had rare time completely to themselves. No rushed dinners between drop-offs and pickups. No checking the clock every hour, just them. "Taste this," he said, holding out a wooden spoon with sauce on it. She tasted it, made a face. "Needs more garlic." "Everything needs more garlic, according to you." "Because I'm right." He laughed and added more garlic anyway. This was their routine now. Weekend dinners when his schedule allowed, movie nights on her couch. Ordinary moments that felt extraordinary because they were together. It hadn't been easy getting here. Nothing worth having ever is. The first few weeks after they decided to try dating had been wonderful and terrifying in equal measure. Wonderful because finally, after months of dancing around their feelings, they could just be honest. Terrifying because being honest meant being vulnerable, and vulnerability meant risk. They'd taken it slow, just like she'd suggested that night in the office. Coffee dates during lunch breaks, dinners after work at quiet restaurants where no one from the office would see them. They wanted to keep things private at first, figure out what they were to each other before everyone else had opinions about it. The first real challenge came when he told her about his daughter. Not just that he had a daughter, she knew that. But what it really meant, the custody arrangement. Every other weekend and Wednesday evenings. Soccer games on Saturday mornings. Birthday parties and school events. A whole life that existed before she came into the picture. "I need you to understand," he'd said during one of their early dates. "She's my priority. Always. And my ex-wife. We have to stay on good terms for her sake. So there will be times when I have to drop everything because something comes up with my kid. Times when plans change last minute. Times when it might feel like you're not the most important person even though you are." She'd appreciated his honesty. "I get it," she'd said. "I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking to be part of your life, whatever that looks like. Even when it's complicated, especially when it's complicated. But knowing something and living it are different things." The first time he'd canceled their date because his daughter had a fever, and his ex-wife had a work emergency. She'd told herself it was fine. She understood. Of course he needed to take care of his child. But lying alone in her apartment that night, she'd felt the doubt creep in. Was she really ready for this? For a relationship where she'd never be first? Where there would always be another person's needs to consider? She'd called her best friend, voice shaky. "Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I'm not cut out for this kind of complicated." "Do you love him?" her friend had asked. She'd gone quiet. Love felt like a big word. A scary word. But also maybe an honest word. "I think I might," she'd admitted. "Then it's not a mistake. It's just hard. There's a difference." Her friend had been right. The next morning, he'd shown up at her door with coffee and apologies. His daughter was better. His ex-wife had come home early. He'd felt terrible about canceling. "Don't apologize for taking care of your daughter," she'd said. "That's part of who you are. Part of why I care about you." He'd kissed her then, right there in her doorway, and she'd known she'd meant what she said. Meeting his daughter had been the biggest step. 3 months into dating, he'd asked if she wanted to join them for ice cream. Just something casual, no pressure. His daughter didn't need to know she was his girlfriend. Just a friend from work. She'd been so nervous she'd barely slept the night before. What if his daughter didn't like her? What if she said the wrong thing? What if she accidentally did something that made co-parenting harder for him? But his daughter had been sweet and funny and talked non-stop about her favorite cartoon and how she'd lost her first tooth last week. And when they were leaving, she'd hugged her goodbye without being asked, which felt like acceptance. "She liked you," he'd said in the car afterward. "How do you know?" "Because she asked if you were coming to her soccer game next week." That had been the beginning of something new. Not playing mom, his daughter already had a mom, but being someone present, someone who showed up to soccer games and birthday parties, someone who learned to braid hair because his daughter asked her to, someone who was building a relationship with this little person who was so important to the man she loved. Because she did love him. She'd figured that out somewhere between the soccer games and the family dinners and the quiet nights on her couch. Loved him for his kindness, his patience, the way he never made her feel like she wasn't enough. The way he made her coffee exactly right every morning. The way he listened when she talked about work stress or family drama or her worries about the future. But loving someone doesn't mean everything is perfect. They'd had fights, real ones, about time and priorities and the fact that sometimes she felt left out of parts of his life, about her tendency to avoid conflict and his habit of trying to fix things instead of just listening, about the future and what it looked like when you're building something new while still managing something old. The worst fight had been about a month ago. His ex-wife had asked him to come to a family event, something for their daughter's grandmother's birthday. And he'd said yes without checking with her first, even though they'd had plans that same day. "You could have asked me," she'd said, trying to keep her voice calm. "It's for my daughter. I didn't think I needed permission. I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking to be considered. To be part of the conversation." They'd fought for an hour, said things they didn't mean, and then sat in tense silence for another hour, both too stubborn to apologize first. Finally, he'd spoken. "You're right. I should have talked to you first. Not because I need permission, but because you matter. Because we're building a life together and that means considering each other. I'm sorry too," she'd said, "for making it seem like your daughter isn't a priority. She should be. I just want to feel like I'm important too. You are. You're so important to me." That fight had actually made them stronger, because they'd worked through it, found a way to communicate better, learned that loving each other meant choosing each other every day even when it was hard. Now standing in her kitchen, watching him cook pasta and make terrible jokes, she felt that certainty settle in her chest. This was what she wanted. Not perfect, not simple, but real. Built on honesty and patience and choosing each other over and over again. "You're staring at me," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how different things are from that night at the retreat. When you walked away." He turned off the stove and came over to her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Do you wish I hadn't? Walked away, I mean." She thought about it. "Really thought about it." "No," she said finally. "I think you were right. We weren't ready then. You needed to figure out your life. I needed to figure out what I really wanted. If we'd started then, we might not have made it. And now we're ready. Or at least we're ready to try." He kissed her forehead. "I love you. I don't think I've said that enough." "You say it all the time." "I mean it all the time." She pulled back to look at him. "Really look at him. You keep looking at me like that," she said, echoing words from a lifetime ago. "Like what?" "Like I'm something special." "Because you are," he said simply. "You're the person who stayed when things got complicated. Who learned to love not just me but the whole messy package of my life. Who makes me want to be better. Who makes coming home feel like coming home." She felt tears starting but didn't try to hide them. "I love you too. Even when it's hard. Maybe especially when it's hard." They stood there in the kitchen, dinner getting cold on the stove, just holding each other. Outside, the city hummed with its usual noise. Cars honked, people laughed. Life continued in its chaotic way. But in here, in this moment, everything felt still. Everything felt right. This wasn't a fairy tale ending. There would still be challenges ahead. Custody schedules to navigate. An ex-wife to maintain a good relationship with. A daughter to continue building trust with. Questions about the future. Marriage, maybe more kids, combining households, all the complicated conversations they hadn't had yet. But they would figure it out. Together. One day at a time. One choice at a time. One moment of choosing each other at a time. Because that's what love is, really. Not the big romantic gestures or the perfect moments. It's showing up. It's staying. It's working through the hard parts and celebrating the good parts and building something that's messy and real and yours. Dinner's getting cold, she said finally. Let it, he said, kissing her again. And in that moment, with pasta getting cold and music still playing and the future stretching out before them uncertain and beautiful, she knew they were going to be okay. Not perfect, not easy, but together. And that was more than enough.